Welcome to the second Author Spotlight. I'm delighted to share this time with Netta Murray, a Californian now in England. So welcome to this changeable weather. If only it were lovely as your background, although I do notice there's some clouds in the skies. But yeah, so where are you in the UK today?
First, thank you for having me.
Oh,
Appreciate
you're
it.
very welcome.
I am in South Yorkshire in the
Oh,
UK.
lovely, lovely.
So,
Well, my in-laws are all from Yorkshire, so that's a
oh,
big tick. That's a big tick.
excellent.
So anyway, we're here to talk about you and your writing. So going back to the beginnings, can you remember what you wrote first and when you started writing, how you got into it?
I have always, as far back as I can remember, I've always been writing. So the earliest thing that my mother kept was a story that I wrote when I was in first grade in California, where I grew up. So I was about probably 5 or 6 years old. And it was a story about being in a lunchbox and what that was like. And she
About
just loved it, so she kept it. And maybe I'll go
about
back someday and I'll take that and expand it into something.
okay. Sorry, about being what in a lunchbox?
A thermos.
A
So like
thermos.
yeah,
Oh,
with
how
liquid
sweet.
in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and what was the liquid? Can you
Oh, I
remember?
don't know. I don't remember
Oh,
much about it, to tell you the truth. Hopefully
okay.
not alcohol, because that would be bad.
Okay. No, I like to think hot chocolate. I have hot chocolate
Ooh,
because I'm a tea
that's
drinker, but
good.
tea's never the same when it's sort of try to keep warm and I'm not a coffee drinker.
You're right.
Yeah,
Hot
well, how
chocolate is
lovely.
excellent out of a thermos.
Well,
Yeah.
that seems to be lovely, hot or cold, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll say it was hot chocolate.
Okay.
So, do you have a sort of schedule of when you write? Are you a full-time writer?
Um, I mean, I am sort of a full-time writer. The way I work is that I have to get stuff done in the mornings before I
Hmm.
can settle down and have my mind clear to write. So I
Right.
have to get the housework done. I have 2 cats. I have to get them settled and whatever they need taken care of. So I mostly write in the afternoons. I have an early
Okay.
lunch and then I just sit down and I write for the whole afternoon or
Mm.
do whatever else is needed. I also, as you know, you have to do marketing when you're a writer, and I do all that in the
Yes.
early morning before anything else,
Right.
just to get it out of the way. But I have to
Yes,
have your head.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
And do you ever find that takes over and you're getting less? Do you start at a certain time and finish at a certain time, or start and then finish when you feel a natural break?
Not precisely, but I would say my husband works from home as well. So we
Okay.
do tend to meet for lunch around noon and watch
Oh,
something, like
nice.
bargain
Nice.
hunt or something.
Uh-huh.
So I usually start around 1 o'clock, and then yeah, I write as long as I feel I can
Yeah.
keep going. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's 4 o'clock, sometimes it's 6 o'clock. So
Right. Because you write novels and short stories. So do
I
you
do.
tend to do you find, because I was chatting with Denise earlier, that if you, because I work on more than one project at the same time, and some people say there isn't writer's block, but there's certainly a point you get to when you don't know what's going to happen next. And then if you've got another project you can go to, you can almost let your subconscious keep going in the background while you then switch to this other project, and then hopefully find when you get back to it that you know where to carry on from there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how the short stories work. So it's great that I can be in anthologies and do short stories. A lot
Mhm.
of my short stories, I'm in a writing group that meets
Okay.
every first and third Saturday in Doncaster.
Mhm.
And a lot of my short stories started there because we have writing
Okay.
exercises at the second half. And I
Sure.
realized suddenly that I had 4 or 5 stories that all had sort of a paranormal bent.
Right.
So that was the start of a supernatural shindig, one of my books.
Okay.
And I just, every when I was working on the novel and needed to take a break, I went and wrote a ghost story or a werewolf story or something
Mm.
to
Hmm.
just help clear out my mind and let it keep working in the
Right.
background. So you're absolutely right. That is how
Okay.
it works.
Do you enter your stories into competitions? Have you done?
I have done when I first started out. Lately, I just
Mm.
find I'm too busy, really, and I
Right.
haven't. I did get an honorable mention in an Easter contest for a short
Okay.
story I
Nice.
wrote.
Hmm.
Yeah, which was fun. And I do a lot of work with Readsy, which is in America.
Oh yes. Yes.
And so sometimes I'll enter their weekly sort of thing, and get feedback
Okay.
from that, which is fun.
Hmm.
But
Right.
yeah, honestly, I've just been too busy to enter
Yeah.
competitions.
Yeah. But isn't it lovely just writing and almost not for the sake of it, because that sounds bad as if you, I mean, some writers do say that. I think it was Asimov who was quoted as saying, I write because writing is like breathing. I just have to do it. And I'm terrible because I like to, when I'm working on a novel, I don't work on it every single day, which I should, because then I have to go so far back that I almost don't start because I think I've got to go back so far that, because I'm a pantser, I don't really plot. And I found after the first couple of novels that actually I should probably be a plotter, because I then have to recap so much to then be able to carry on going. Um, are you a
Yeah,
plotter or a?
I'm a plotzer, so I'm right in the middle.
Okay.
I will do an outline. I will do a general outline.
Hmm.
So I have that to go back to, and I do a lot of days. I go back and say, what did I plan next? What was,
Right.
and it won't be
Yes.
chapter by chapter, but it'll be kind of the major events. So I know where
Hmm.
I'm headed.
Mm.
Um, with the first novel, I did find it went off outline on occasion,
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
murderer ended up being slightly different than I
Okay.
planned.
Well, that's funny because J.K. Rowling is quoted as saying that she'd planned her 7 book series in her cafe in Edinburgh, and she knew exactly what was going to happen at every single stage. But then when she got to it was either the 6th or 7th book, where she was due to kill off a fairly main character, he or she's never said which, didn't want to be killed off. So she had to kill off another one instead, which sounds absolutely crazy. But if you're a writer, then, and I guess if you're a reader, because when you're reading, you're imagining this world. And so that's, yeah,
Yeah.
that absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely
I
true.
found the opposite thing actually. I had in the original plot to Move to Murder, I had one of the major characters had a toddler at home, and
Okay.
it just wasn't working with the plot. I couldn't use her as much as I wanted to, so I
Hmm.
had to kill off the poor toddler and go back and erase her
Oh,
from the story. I
okay.
felt so horrible.
All right. Well, we were talking in the with Denise about it's absolutely fine to really torture adults, but you can't kill children or animals. And
Yeah, yeah,
she'd killed off a couple in one of her books. Or I think,
yeah. No, no, my toddler never existed, so it's not in the book at
oh,
all.
okay, that's fine. So killed off behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But your stuff is quite dark. It's murder mystery, paranormal. It's quite, do you
You
write or
say that.
read lighter stuff?
Well, it's a cozy mystery, the Move to
Okay.
Murder. And the reason it's a
Yeah.
cozy mystery is because, as you say, I couldn't kill off an animal. I just couldn't do it.
No.
Not about children. I haven't tried yet,
Yeah.
but I couldn't kill off an animal. And the reason I write that is because you can have humor in it,
Yes.
So I definitely, everything I write is lightened by humor because it's
Yeah.
just my favorite
Yeah.
thing to write, which is dicey because humor, especially, selling to two different countries like I do to America and England.
Exactly. Yes. Do you find, how long have you been in the UK?
Oh gosh, 18 years now. So a while.
Okay. So I'd like to say half your life. Um,
That's
so
right.
do you find now you have a balance of humor because humor is very subjective.
It
What
is.
my husband finds funny, I just kind of try to laugh, but I have quite a dry sense of humor. But then if I make him laugh in the first 2 minutes of the morning, then that's my day complete.
Mm.
So, but sort of external humor can be very subjective.
It can be. And I have some marvelous beta readers. I have half of my beta readers are from America and half are from the UK. So I can
Okay,
make
that
sure I'm
helps.
doing that
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
not going too far in either direction.
Okay.
Honestly, though, more of the problem tends to be the fact that despite being an introvert in
Mm.
America, I don't seem as introverted in the UK. And
Okay.
I tend to be very blunt with things sometimes. And my UK readers have to go, that doesn't sound right. You need to
Ah,
back off that a little bit.
right. Because
So
we
that
are,
can,
as a nation, we're introverted.
I
So
think so.
I think all Brits should be writers because we're just halfway there already,
Mm.
really. Do you find when because you said you do your marketing, do you find it differs from UK to US and elsewhere? Do you do anything differently?
I I do book fairs in the UK, which
Okay.
I find, I don't know that I do them in America, to tell you the truth, but I find in
Right.
the UK they're more intimate. You get to
Hmm.
talk to more people and things. So I find them
Yes.
useful in the UK. And
Mm.
I do sell books when I go. Not a
Mm.
whole lot, but it's nice to be able
Mm.
to meet people who are reading
Yes.
books.
Well, you never know when, because I give out my if I sell something, if I do a car boot sale, so my uncle's moving house, and so I do car boot sale, like garage sales in the middle of a field, and and you meet all sorts of weird and wonderful people, and so when if I sell something, I give a plastic bag, it has my bookmark in it, and the thing about marketing, even if you go if you do a literary festival and you sell one book,
Mm.
that might then become a book club book, and somebody might know somebody who knows somebody who's an agent or a literary uh, um, a publisher, or organizes a literary festival and invites you back. So you never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I'm actually headed to America on Wednesday
Right.
for a trip. And my sister has already arranged like this massive block party in America where everybody's
Oh,
going to come and buy
wow.
my books and get me to sign them.
Oh,
And
how
you could do that
lovely.
sort of thing in America, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine doing it in the UK. you
Okay.
know. So
Yeah,
yeah, but
we are definitely more reserved over here. I remember the first speaking gig I did was in Lowestoft in Suffolk, which is East Coast, and I'd done a workshop for half an hour, and then set some exercises, and they were all very keen. It was a writing group, so they're all very keen to read them out. And then I sold my books afterwards, and one of them, it's behind me somewhere in a different format, was the first writer's block workbook. And I'll use a random piece of paper. And this lady came up to me and with this my webcam with this book, and she went, "Would you sign this for me?" And I went, "Yes, I would." And I was so thrilled. There's nothing
yeah,
like, I mean, there's it's one thing to write a book, but have somebody actually give you hard cash for it, and then be so thrilled when it's got their name in it. It's
yeah,
just amazing, really
yeah.
amazing. So
It's
it's
like you're
brilliant.
a momentary rock star.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have any super fans that you know of? Anybody who buys everything you've ever, apart from
Not
your friend?
yet.
Right.
Um, as I'm sure you know, when you first start putting books out there, you just get massive amounts of marketers trying to pretend to be your friend.
Yes, yes. That's a real problem on Facebook at the moment. Is
Yeah,
just you mention something, and they're there under the guise of helping.
yeah,
Um, and so I block them all. I probably spend more time blocking people
yeah.
on fakes on
But
Facebook.
sometimes it's hard to tell. You don't want to block your fans, So
No,
there's that line where you have to suss out, do they
yes,
want something
exactly.
or
Yes. Well,
I'm
every
not.
now and then you see in a group post, it'll be, can you recommend a genre that you write? And you kind of scroll down hoping that someone's mentioned you. Of course, they never do. But I was tagged in the other day. There's a lovely lady called Ellie Bell, and she will, if somebody is looking for a very specific type of book and she knows I've written it, she'll tag me in and suggest it, which is wonderful. One of my school friends has read everything I've published.
Mm,
And then there's a lady who I did an editing course at a writers National Association of Writers groups um, weekend, editing weekend. And she's sort of a bit of a champion. So I think networking, you were saying about book fairs, and do you go to literary festivals and meet other
oh,
authors? Yeah.
yes, definitely.
It's an amazing industry, and generally 99.9% of people are genuine, and they will help you. I kind of compare
Yeah.
it to learner drivers, that we've all been a learner at some point, and so we tend to give them extra room and extra help. And I think the writing industry, and it's quite a small industry actually. If you go to enough literary festivals, you do often see the same core people there.
Yes,
But
it's very
yeah,
true. Yeah.
it's wonderful. Yeah. So for you, what's the best thing, and is there a worst thing about writing? Or
Um, the best thing is that point where you're getting into the story and it just starts flowing and the characters, I
right.
didn't think this was true, but it is. The characters start speaking to you. They
Oh,
start becoming real people in your mind, and helping you push the plot forward, and you start to know what they would do and wouldn't do. And I think that is a minor miracle, frankly, when that happens. So I love that point.
Because you never know what's going to come out of your brain, do you?
Times you don't.
Because you were saying earlier on that you plot, and yet you get to a point where actually your brain says, oh no, this would be much better.
Yeah. Or throws in a curve, like, what if this person did this? And you're like, oh, that's great. I need that red herring. Oh, red herrings are so fun. Worst, I would say, is that point. I went to a book launch the other day, and the author's husband calls her worst part the muddle in the middle, when you're right in the middle, and you don't have enough to quite get to the end yet, but you don't know where to go with it.
And you don't want a saggy middle either.
No, you don't. You've got to have those plot points that makes them turn the page. So
exactly.
I thought that was a very good name for it, the muddle in the middle.
So do you do everything yourself? You do your obviously you would do editing up to a point. You do your covers and as well.
It varies with the cozy mystery, because it was the start of a series. I actually went with a hybrid publisher because I wanted to learn from them how to properly do the marketing and everything. And they've really helped me, showed me how to do an advanced information sheet, and gave advice on how to sell to bookstores and all kinds of things that I am a studier. I have 4 college degrees. I went to college forever. I just love learning. So my problem is I tend to procrastinate and learn stuff instead of going over and doing it. So that really helped. But before that happened with the short stories, I did it myself. I did the cover myself. I did the formatting myself. I published it myself. I did have friends read it who I knew were very literate and give me editing advice, because I would never go without an editor. It's just nobody.
No, some people do, but I'm an editor and I have an editor, and part of my job as an editor is come up with not major alternatives, but if I think a scene can work better a certain way, then I'll give advice on doing it. So it's the suggestions that my editor comes up with. I think, oh yes, I could do it that way.
Yeah.
So you always do, and they'll always find something.
Exactly. Oh, you could go through 90 million times. That's the other thing, is letting it go. Going, it's good enough. Let's let it go.
Well, when I edit, so I do 2 sweeps, send it back, and then they go through it, and then it comes back to me. I do 2 sweeps and send it back, and then it can come back to me a third time, and I can go through it again. And we're constantly finding things. So why readers complain about finding one? I mean, one typo is pretty much miraculous in a book. And it was traditionally published, and there was a typo in it. So I have a Kindle that reads it out to me, and it'll read as it's written, which is brilliant.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Because it's a Kindle Fire, so it has text to speech on it, and so it reads out literally as it's written. Except there are odd words if they're spelt the same. That he had a wound on his arm instead of a wound.
Of
and
course.
the wind through the trees. But no, it's brilliant, because and so every sweep I do, you just email it as a Word document, or drag into there's a Kindle part of Amazon's.
What an excellent idea. I do always do one sweep through, reading it out loud to myself, because I find that helps you with the dialogue, that helps you spot those kinds of errors and everything. So hearing it is a great thing to do.
So what did you do before you became a writer?
You'll be shocked to hear that I was a technical wrter and editor for most of my life.
Okay.
Well,
that helps. That helps with grammar and structure, and now it's more fun killing people and not killing animals. And
I grew up in Silicon Valley, so it was all computer software and computer hardware, and I was also a librarian, so I had kind of a dual career between technical writing and librarianship.
So it's always been English language and
books have
and
always been around.
So what's next for you? What are you working on at the moment, and what do you think
I'm
we'll see
working on
next?
the second murder mystery in the series, in the Vivian Brandt series. which is going to be called Dug to Death.
Oh,
I'm
good.
going with Move to Murder, Dug to Death. We already know
Right.
the third one's going to be Shipped to Slaughter. It's going to be on a cruise ship, so they're going to
Okay.
be
So
identifiable.
you're gradually working your way through the alphabet. Do a what's the word? Not linear, but I can't think of the way where you don't go A to Z. Like Sue Grafton wrote, I think she only got as
Yeah,
far as Y before she died. And
yeah.
there was somebody on Facebook the other day asked for she'd got to, I think she'd got to W, and she was stuck for a book title because she was doing A to Z in the year, and she hadn't got an X and or a Y. So I said, well, if you go and buy Sue Grafton's book, that takes you from A to Y, and you only need to
Yeah,
find a Z.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, got a
Yeah,
few
I know.
likes for that.
It is a bit boxing yourself in, and I have a future one that I'm planning that's going to be at an Irish music festival, and I'm just like fiddled to fatality. I'm having a hard
Oh
time
yeah,
with that one.
yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Have you been to Ireland? Have you got Irish connections?
Yes, I do. I met my husband there.
Okay.
We were with an organization called Earthwatch that does
Okay.
environmental things, and they were
Mhm.
studying the origins of Celtic music at a music festival in Ireland, and I met my husband there. Yeah,
Wow.
we were
Wow.
both
So
working on it.
you're both musical. Do you play
No,
anything?
I think
Uh,
he did several different projects with them, but I think the Ireland one was based on the fact that you got to hang out and talk to people in pubs while drinking
Okay.
Guinness. I think that
Guinness,
was the attraction.
absolutely. Yes. Well, apparently Guinness over there is pretty much the same as no. I think my husband said that Guinness here isn't the same as Guinness in Ireland, but Guinness in bottles or cans is pretty much the same as draft over here. I don't drink it, so he doesn't drink it either, but I don't know.
You'll never know. No, I much
Yeah.
prefer it in England. For one thing, you don't get as much of a hang in Ireland. You don't get as much of a hangover. I guess there's fewer preservatives or
Okay.
something since it's
Right.
made there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
bonus.
fresher, I suppose. Anywhere you haven't been that you'd like to go?
Oh wow. Um, yeah, so many places.
Have you been to
Greece.
Hawaii? You were saying your picture behind you is Hawaii.
Yeah, that is my picture
Oh,
behind me. So that's one of the
wow.
ones I took. When I lived in
Lovely.
California, we went every few years. So,
Oh, yes.
and I'm going for my sister's 60th birthday next year. So we're all
Oh,
doing the trip
nice.
to
Nice.
Hawaii. Can't wait. It's a
Oh,
much
how
longer
lovely.
trip now than it was when I lived in California.
Okay. Yes,
But yeah, I love.
absolutely.
But yeah, I'd love to go to Greece. That's definitely on the top of my list. I'd like to see some parts of Russia.
Right.
It's endless. I mean, I love
Yeah.
living in England now because I've been able to do lots of bits of Europe, which has
Yeah.
just been amazing.
Well, I think
So
that
I'm very lucky.
I think when you live in the UK, you don't explore very much over here. And a lot of people think that the weather isn't brilliant. It's been very hit and miss this year. But I think there's so much of the UK to explore that
Mm.
we should stay inland um, and explore more of our country. Because
Oh,
there are
absolutely.
lovely days. It's really warm today. So,
We actually have my mother-in-law for a wedding present bought us life memberships to English Heritage and National Trust. So
oh,
wherever we go in the UK, we can visit
mhm,
stately
go
homes and
there.
gardens and things.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
love it. It's
How
amazing.
lovely. How lovely. Brilliant. Anything else you'd like to add?
Um, I don't think so. Just that the thing I love, I'm very much a write what you know sort of person. I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
read sci-fi, fantasy, love all that stuff.
Mm.
But for me, I think the advantage to starting writing when you're later in life is that you have so much life experience to work off of.
Yes. Well, I was saying earlier
So,
on that I came to writing at 38, 37, 38, and thought I haven't really led a particularly interesting life, so I wouldn't have anything to write about. But we watch TV, we read books, and so there's always plenty. You have a good
yeah,
imagination, there's always plenty to write about.
yeah, exactly. And you
Yeah.
can. And my heroine is a much um, more spunky, younger, thinner version
Right.
of me. So that
Okay.
if you're going to write, you might as well do that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Well, it's
yeah,
been
I've
an
drawn. Sorry, I was going to say I've drawn in bits
yeah.
of. I've studied interior design, and I've studied. I'm a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, so
Mhm.
you'll find bits of all that in my books, and I wouldn't
Mm.
have had that if I was younger.
Right. And the thing about learning so much is that it's all there then in your brain. and you never know what you're going to pick up on. I was at a family party pretty much all day on Saturday, and I was asked the question by in-laws of in-laws, um, who I thought there was a serial killer. And I would have loved to actually have said to the person who asked me, "Well, I think you'd make a brilliant serial killer." So I just said it was somebody very ordinary looking, the kind of person who wears dull, dark colours, not dull as in boring, but dull colour, who doesn't want to be noticed. The ones in the background, they're usually the ones that are up to no good. But I don't. It was the first time I'd met him, so I'll say that to him next time.
There is that temptation when you write murder mysteries to knock off, like, relatives that maybe you're not that fond of,
Yeah,
fictionally.
yeah, absolutely. No, luckily,
I have to resist.
they're all fabulous. Yes,
Oh,
I've
good.
adopted them all, so that's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, it's been a real pleasure. We shall see you again to chat about whichever book you would like to chat about first, or your short story in an anthology.
That would be
And
great.
brilliant. We'll see you again. Thank you so much for joining me.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you.
Morgan.
You're very welcome.